Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about the achingly 80s action film Roadhouse, starring Patrick Swayze at the height of his fame and popularity. And Patrick Swayze plays our main character, James Dalton, a nightclub bouncer in New York. Dalton is renowned for his ability to keep things calm within a club, and in those rare cases where things do get violent, for his ability to end them quickly and cleanly. In fact, Dalton's so good at this that he's got his current bar pretty much locked down and running smoothly. So he's more or less ready to be tempted by a lucrative offer from the owner of a bar named the Double Juice, which is located down in southern Missouri. According to the beleaguered club owner Frank, the Double Juice has recently become so rowdy that there's blood on the floor every night. Dalton is the only man whose reputation suggests he could fix the problem. Now, it will soon emerge that there's a reason the Double Juice is getting so out of control. A local businessman slash extortionist, Brad Wesley, is set on turning the town into his own personal fiefdom, and that means driving out all of the other business owners. In other words, many of the big troublemakers of the Double Juice are doing so at Wesley's behest, and he is none too pleased when Dalton turns up and starts cracking down on such antics and cracking heads in the process. The two men are soon on a collision course, and given that neither of them is the type to back down, a rapid escalation of violence is inevitably going to ensue. So what you've basically got here is your typical knight-errant tale. A stranger comes to town, meets a woman, falls afoul of the evil baron, but updated to the 1980s. And make no mistake, this film is very, very 1980s, from the hair to the fashion to the complete lack of nuance in the script. Now, I saw Roadhouse back when it first came out on home video, and I enjoyed it a lot. But then it had plenty of topless ladies, tough guy dialogue, and tough guy fight scenes, and I was still in that phase of life where that was pretty much all the film needed to keep me entertained. And I wasn't alone. The film did decent business at the box office and was even praised by Bill Murray. Critics were less convinced. They gave it mediocre reviews, and the film also garnered 5 Golden Raspberry nominations, though it did not win, to use a probably inappropriate word, any of them. Now, watching Roadhouse these days, I'm struck by the thought that there is merit to all of these responses, both positive and negative. This is not technically a good film. The script and the fight choreography are both clumsy, and despite studying martial arts in real life, Patrick Swayze, to me, often looks uncomfortable in the tough guy leading role. And yet the film clearly struck a chord with people. It got a 2003 camp comedy stage adaptation. It got a 2006 sequel, and just this year a remake was released. So why did this movie stay in people's minds? Well, let's dig in. And let's start with Roadhouse's most famous slash infamous line of dialogue: "Pain don't hurt." Now, there are a few ways you can interpret this statement. The most obvious is that it's nonsense. Clearly pain does hurt. That's what pain means. But since the line is delivered by a protagonist, we're probably not supposed to be that uncharitable. Indeed, since the film is overtly positioning said protagonist as a warrior philosopher, and I do mean overtly, since the same conversation that this line appears in will establish that Dalton has an actual degree in philosophy, the intent would appear to be either that pain is something that a properly disciplined mind can rise above, or that physical pain is nothing compared to spiritual torment, because of course our warrior philosopher is spiritually tormented. I suspect that Dalton's positioning as a thinking man's tough guy is part of the film's appeal. One of his 3 cardinal rules for his bar staff is be nice. Be nice when you first engage with a problematic customer. Be nice even if they try to escalate. Be nice in the face of their provocation. Be nice until Dalton himself decides that it is time not to be nice anymore. In short, Dalton isn't just a tough guy whose first resort is his fists. He's calm and calculated, using violence only when necessary, but absolutely pulling no punches when he does so. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people watching the movie, young men in particular, would have loved to imagine themselves being. So yeah, Dalton stands out from the rough and tumble crowd of typical 80s action heroes in that he is more measured and cerebral in what he's doing, and I think that helped make the film memorable at the time. Roadhouse is also helped by a strong soundtrack. This is anchored by blues guitarist Jeff Healey and his band, who are fresh off the back of their platinum-selling debut album, See the Light, which was a deliberately on-the-nose album title, given that Healey lost his sight as an infant and was legally blind. Healey and his band appear in the film itself as the house band for the Double Juice. In that role, they limit themselves to playing covers within the film. rather than any new material, but this is more than enough to provide an authentic atmosphere for the numerous scenes set within the bar. Healy even gets a few lines of dialogue in the movie, which is enough to confirm that as an actor, he was a very good musician. Much of the film's wider soundtrack aligns to that of the Healy Band, as jazz and blues oriented, giving the whole film a swaggering twang. The one blip in all that is probably the two tracks that Patrick Swayze himself performs. I suspect that this was an attempt to recapture the financial success of his Dirty Dancing single, She's Like the Wind, but in my opinion, the resulting tracks are among this movie's least memorable. And then we've got Sam Elliott. Patrick Swayze may be the lead actor in Roadhouse, with Elliott turning up in a supporting role only sort of halfway through. But the experienced Elliott effortlessly steals every scene he's in, right from his very first moment on screen through to his last. Elliott plays Wade Garrett, the now aging former mentor of James Dalton, though he was actually only about 6 or 8 years older than Swayze. He's Sam Elliott. He's always looked like he's 60. His greying hair and gravelly voice give him the gravitas to pull off the paternal role required of him, while still showing off the spark of irreverence and humour that Garrett, unlike his conflicted, philosophical former protege, still possesses. If you do watch this movie, I bet it takes all of 5 minutes for Elliott's performance to convince you that the producers missed a trick in not immediately rolling out a Garrett-centred prequel. Dye Sam Elliott's hair dark and slap a little makeup on him to reduce the cragginess, and you'd be good to go. So yeah, Roadhouse is not a technically good film, perhaps. Some of the acting's a bit ropey. Some of the fight choreography is definitely a bit ropey. Some of the dialogue is terrible. But it does have a couple of strong factors that help it stand out and make it a pretty good, if sometimes very cheesy, action movie experience. And I can see why it was a success at the time. Next time, as mentioned, Roadhouse did stick in people's minds, but it would not be until almost 20 years later that a sequel got made. So I'll be taking a look at the not terribly imaginatively titled Roadhouse 2.